Hello, my friends. On March 3rd, we have a lunar eclipse coming up, and it's going to be 18 degrees in Leo in PurvaPhalguni Nakshatra, and it's going to conjunct Ketu. Now, this is going to be visible in the Americas, Eastern Asia, Australia, and some Pacific regions. So if you're there, you'll be experiencing the eclipse is going to have more impact around you there. And this is, this eclipse, I want to call it the karmic love detox eclipse, because PurvaPhalguni is the marriage nakshatra. It's the love relationship nakshatra. And so, being that it's going to conjunct Ketu, it's not just about some romance ending, it's not just a relationship drama. This is, like I said, this is about karmic love detox. And we all need that, because this eclipse is going to dissolve ego and love. It's going to, get rid of any addiction to validation that you might have. It will remove any kind of fantasy-based romance you might be experiencing. It could also dissolve any kind of seduction that you're using, as an identity in your relationship, and then it just leaves you with flat out truth about who you are, who your partner is, and what you both bring to the relationship, who you are on a real soul deep level in that relationship, which I think is really beautiful. So if you have any planets in Leo or in Aquarius, you're going to experience this a lot. You're going to feel this a lot more than others. And it's much more stronger this, if you have Leo in the 5th or 7th house, you'll feel this a lot stronger than other people. So, it's a deep eclipse, and there's more to it, because what does a lunar eclipse do? Well, it's a supercharged full moon, right? And it reveals what you've been avoiding, what you're refusing to see, and it forces you to confront it. And sometimes it's uncomfortable, and sometimes things happen in very, sudden and unexpected ways. Sometimes it feels a little bit drama filled, because it is a supercharged full moon, and so your emotions are going to feel a little bit more supercharged than usual. And it does illuminate hidden truths, repressed emotions, any unresolved relationship patterns, and attachments that may have expired. You know what I mean? So you're going to realize these things. And like I said, the eclipses, they force confrontation. You can't really spiritually bypass anything during an eclipse. You can't romanticize your way out of an eclipse, right? And so you'll see how this is going to bring emotional climax, sudden endings. There'll be some plot twists. There's usually a lot of plot twists with eclipses, and there will be fated revelations. And so pay attention to what's being revealed to you in the days ahead, because it's valuable information. And because this eclipse is conjunct Ketu, the south node, it's not just an emotional thing, it's a very, very karmic thing, because Ketu detaches, it dissolves, and it also represents your past life, residue. It represents spiritualization, ego disillusion, and it's also about completing cycles. So this might feel like an emotional purge, but like on a soul level. It's deep. It really is. And so the difference of why PurvaPhalguni makes a difference is PurvaPhalguni's symbol is the bed, the two front legs of the bed. And it's not just a bed nakshatra representing like romance and pleasures, but it does represent marriage and relationships. It rules, seduction, romance, being adored, being chosen, charisma, magnetism, pleasure, luxury, validation. So its symbol, the front two legs also represent royalty, so there's this like theme with the nakshatra of like romantic entitlement, a prince kind of energy, attention addiction, performing, femininity or maybe masculinity, using romance as your identity. So when the eclipse conjuncts the moon, not the moon, but the south node Ketu, we get to experience like an ego death in love. It's interesting. And so you'll see how you'll physically and emotionally, spiritually witness how Ketu is going to dissolve your need for romantic validation or dissolve your need for wanting to perform for love, dissolve your need to seek self, worthiness through desirability, dissolve your desire, to be so addicted to attention, right? It'll dissolve like your desire, let's say, to be pursued without reciprocity. It helps to really balance things, right? And you'll find that with this eclipse, you're going to be asking yourself, well, am I really in love? Or am I just addicted to love? Do I just want to be loved? Or do I just want to be in a romance? Like, am I just really addicted to this? Or, am I maybe just too bonded in the relationship? Or is this more about entertaining me in some way, shape, or form? K2 is going to strip those illusions away, and you really do get a much clearer reality of what your relationship is about, because it removes all of that fantasy, it removes all of that type of like essence, with fantasy. So, you'll see that people's masks drop. You get to see them for who they really are. You know what I mean? There's like no more hiding who you are. There's no more hiding who your partner is, or love interest is, or crush is. They become much more, everything becomes much more of a grounded reality, I want to say. And you could lose, I've seen some relationship, like you could lose attraction for your partner, like literally overnight, because of this eclipse. There could be where you maybe realize you kind of over romanticized the relationship, or made the relationship more than what it is, and now you have some clarity and you experience like this sudden emotional detachment from your partner. Now, this is not going to happen to everyone, but it will happen for some people, and it will feel really shocking. It will feel, for others, more liberating. The other thing that this eclipse does is PurvaPhalguni, it's ruled by Venus. So Venus rules art and beauty and aesthetics and branding, feminine energy, creative fertility. So K2 here could actually strip all these superficial aesthetics. So if you've been, let's say, let's say Leo's in your 10th house, and you've been very superficial with your image, your public image. Well, now K2 is gonna make you much more authentic, because K2 wants you to be your most authentic self, like literally to the bone, to your core being, to your soul. Wants you to live a really authentic life, like no pretty illusions, no image-based branding, no performance seduction, trying to lure others. It's like, hey, look at you, look at who you are, look at me, people really seeing you for who you are, which is really important, because authenticity is very, very, very important in anything that you do, in your relationships, in your career, in how you express yourself, in your image. This eclipse will actually force you in some way, shape, or form to reveal your most authentic self. So if you are looking to do that, or maybe you don't want to do that, either way, it's much easier if you're more willing to do the work, as opposed to wanting to continue the illusion and hide that side of yourself. Another theme with this eclipse you're going to find is that there's a lot of because the nakshatra rules pleasure and procreation, you'll find that, there's an alignment here that's going to possibly, for some, it depends on your natal chart, there could be past life lovers resurfacing. There could be some karmic sexual ties ending, there could be sudden disinterest in casual pleasures. You're now wanting something more deep, more real. You don't want superficial, love connection. And I find too that, some people might go through a phase of celibacy, where you don't want to engage in an intimate connection with someone unless it's more spiritually involved. You're looking for a more spiritual connection. And I think that's really beautiful and important in relationships, to have that kind of connection when you're being intimate with someone, because it shows that it's real and not superficial. And that's what, the lunar eclipse conjunct Ketu here in PurvaPhalguni wants to do for you. So for some of you, you know, you might have a sudden loss in your libido because you're thinking and feeling this way, you know. So don't get freaked out if that happens. This is why it's happening. That's why I'm sharing this with you. Another theme that could pop up for you is because PurvaPhalguni does have ties to like royal energy. So if you're in this princess kind of complex theme in a relationship, well, that's gonna die out. You know, Katie's gonna be like, no, this is silly, it's fake. Let's be real. Let's show you who you really are. You know, let's show you who they really are. So you're gonna be exploring your relationship in a different way. You know, you won't be using you won't be using your charm, you know, in intimacy, right? You're just, like I said before, your idea of romance is going to mature so much that, like I said, you're looking for a spiritual connection. You're looking for something deeper, and you want your partner or potential partner to see the real beauty in you, to see you, your soul core, and that's what's really going to make the relationship amazing. Or, you know, that's what's going to open the door so that you can experience a really amazing, authentic soul connection type relationship, which those ones are the ones that really last because you feel the connection, right? Now, another theme here could be, because this does have ties to fertility, it is the fifth house that the eclipse is happening, natural fifth house of the zodiac in Leo. So there could be, for some, pregnancy revelations. There could be some shifts in fertility. Maybe you had a block, the block gets removed, you know. Maybe you realize that you're not interested in having children, right? Because, like I said, lunar eclipses are supercharged full moons, so you have these realizations, you know, with respect to children. And for some, this could be releasing an attachment to like a specific romantic type of future, or, you know, if you were romanticizing about children, then it's going to be much more clear as to whether or not you want them, can have them, can't have them, or, you know, you're going to be able to better align yourself with the idea of children or not having children, because this also has to do with legacy. So you're much more focused on your legacy. You're much more focused on your connection to children, whether it's you want them or you don't want them, right? Because you're thinking about your legacy, how you want to leave a legacy. And we usually leave legacies through our children, you know. And for some, this could be maybe nieces or nephews. It depends on, you know, what your situation is. Now, there is also another theme here, is that there's also a tie to financial speculation. Now, I said earlier in some other videos, this is a great year for money. And what I noticed here with the eclipses, because the eclipse is happening at 18 degrees, but like a day later, sun, it turns 20 degrees in Aquarius, and then it's going to trine Jupiter retrograde, and then shortly after, Jupiter is going direct on the 11th of this month. So I want to say this is probably a really good sign in terms of the stock market speculation, in terms of you know, financial growth and prosperity. So I do love this. I think that this is really great. You know, this, although I don't recommend anyone actually in doing any kind of investment on the day of, but there is something good that could come out as a result of the eclipse and sun trining Jupiter the next day. So I think that's going to be great. And I think that what also you'll see happening is that you'll get, what I want to say, some kind of divine, you know, guidance with money and finances. You'll probably have some really extraordinary ideas, you know, or solutions to help you out financially. So pay attention to those on the day of the eclipse, March 3rd, and the next day, March 4th. Now, because this eclipse is in PurvaPhalguni, PurvaPhalguni symbol is like the front two legs of the bed, and it's, you know, generally just the bed. I do recommend everybody just relax. I think one of the best ways to, things that you can do with this eclipse to kind of like clean up any negative, old stagnant energy with regards to love and romance and relationships and marriage. Just clean up your bedroom, clean up your bed, wipe it down the day before the eclipse. Like, do that work, wipe it down, put some new bed sheets on, you know, revamp your bedroom in some way, shape, or form. Maybe add some photos that represent love and romance and unity. I think this is a really nice way to take advantage of this eclipse to kind of like clear out the old energy and, you know, make room for new energy, for more positive connection. Even if you're not in a relationship, I recommend you do that, because what you're doing is you're welcoming positivity in the love life area, you know, so we want to be able to do that. Definitely you'll get, like I said, you're going to get some signs and symbols, and you'll get some omens. Pay attention to these, write them down. You're going to receive important messages, and some people really get like significant, profound dreams. I got it, you know, profound dreams last eclipse, which was the solar eclipse last month. So, you know, I usually get something happens for me around eclipse times. I would imagine something's happening for you too. So pay attention. You might not mean something at that moment. Just text it to yourself, or write it to yourself, or email it to yourself, and then revisit it, and it'll make things much more clear. Great to do some meditation, sit in silence a little bit for a few minutes. And so this is beautiful. This is going to be a great eclipse. This is fantastic, because in one way, it's like a big reality check, because it draws you so much closer to the truth. It draws you so much closer to you being the most authentic version of yourself in your relationships. This could be your intimate personal relationships. But the most important thing when having conversations with my clients, and you've probably heard me say in some of your videos, is you just have to be the best version of you, whatever that is. And so this eclipse is really paving the way for you to be that wonderful version of yourself. Because many times through TV, community, culture, religion, nationality, you know, environment, we become molded into being something that we really aren't. And it's so important for you to allow yourself to be the true version of you, and not to walk in shame, but to walk, you know, with your head up, and to be proud of who you are, what you stand for, whatever that may be, and not to find any shame in who you are just because it may conflict with family or friends, or, you know, community, culture, religion. So be the most authentic version of yourself. Do not be afraid to be you, and love yourself, because loving God, divine creator, is loving you, because you are created in God's image. So it's really important to just be happy with who you are, and discover a new side of you, and explore that side, and just flourish, grow, and just don't be afraid. All right. And I will see you in the next video.